Welcome to this year's first edition of the Business 7 Show. My name is Sukhana Klage, and I'd like to wish you, the viewers, a happy new year. In today's show, we look at the results release calendar for listed entities for the first half of the year. According to Cyrus Capital, First Rand Namibia, which is the majority shareholder in FNB, is expected to kick off the results publishing session with their interim results for the period ended 31 December 2024 on 26 February 2025, while remaining December 2024 results are expected throughout March. Namibia Asset Management and MTC will publish results for their results periods ending May 2023 in May, as well as Stimulus, which has a February financial year end. In news making the headlines, Deep Yellow has announced that it intends to make a final investment decision for its Tumas project in March and has described it as one of the most advanced greenfield uranium developments around. The Prospective, which is situated approximately 80 kilometers east of the port of Walfish Bay, is estimated to hold 67.3 million pounds and will require up to $372 million to develop, according to Mining Technology website. Providing an update to the market, Deep Yellow MD John Boshoff said the prospective miner had to defer its financial investment decision owing to delays in receiving final costings and quotes for detailed engineering work. The company has a clear outlook from a project and uranium standpoint on how best to ensure that the right platform is established for long-term success, Boshoff said. In other news, Paladin CEO Ian Purdy described the production levels reached at its Langer Heinrich mine as pleasing. The mine was able to record an improvement in works during the November planned plant shutdown in December 2024. Speaking on the production, Purdy said it was pleasing to see benefits from the planned production shutdown and other operational initiatives positively impacting production from Langer Heinrich mine. We continue to de-risk the operation, but recognize that Langer Heinrich is still ramping up towards full production, and patience is required as our local team steadily achieves their goals. In other news, Trustco announced its intention to delist from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and the Namibia Stock Exchange. The company made the announcement in a cautionary notice on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange news service last week. Sending a cautionary to its shareholders, Trustco said in a statement, shareholders are hereby advised that the board of directors of Trustco are considering options to delist the company from the JSE and the NSX. Following the announcement, an expert as prescribed under the JSE listings requirements would be engaged to provide an updated fairness opinion on the proposed delisting of Trustco. The company said that it would be engaging the JSE regarding the formal delisting proposals and would request the suspension of share trading on the JSE in terms of Section 1.10 of the listings requirement to prevent any asymmetry of information in the market as 3 audit processes continue, the company said in a statement. And that wraps up our segment regarding local news. We'll take a look at key videos shortly. In our first video for this week's edition, we take a look at Andrada Mining, which is based in the Erongo region, and they talk about their race in the rare earth space. Do have a look.
Good morning, everybody, and once again, welcome to Tavistock Talks. Today I have Tim Murray, who's Head of Explorations at Andrada Mining. Thank you very much for joining, Tim. And I think that there's a few things we're going to be discussing, one of which is the drill results from Bramberg West, which really does highlight the critical minerals potential at Andrada, following the SQM announcement that was announced on the 9th of September with regards to Lithium Ridge. Once again, welcome, Tim. Thanks again for your time. Following the drill results from Bramberg West, please can you give us a little bit more information on that? Because it is, I think, not widely understood that Andrada is now a critical minerals play rather than just a tin or a lithium play. What's happened? Tell us about it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, pleasure.
In addition to that, Brandberg West is different from our other assets in that it's not a pegmatite asset, it's a vein-hosted deposit. What's really different there is, instead of having this massive low-grade deposit where you've got tin, tantalum, and lithium, we've found much higher-grade veins with tin, tungsten, and copper, and we've also actually got a couple hints of silver and gallium, which we were hoping to find, and we're quite excited that we have. What we've done there is the Brandberg West deposit was historically run by Goldfields, and they kind of developed an open pit, and when the tin price collapsed, they shut down the operations. Now, as you can see, the tin price is going back up. We've acquired the assets. Now, we've gone and we drilled within the pits, and we looked for the northern extension. So when you get on the ground there, you can see that these quartz veins continue to the north, and we've got nice little hints of copper and tin in them, and tungsten. So we drilled the pit itself to show that the really high-grade stuff continues in the middle, but also that it continues to the north for about 2 kilometers.
Wow.
And the grades actually are quite consistent, but the veins are spaced more widely apart.
So a real mineral-rich area, right? And just give us a bit of background on the actual grade. You said high grades. What do you mean by that?
So in comparison, Uis has an average tin grade of about 0.15%. The highest tin grade we got at Brandberg West was 4.6%.
Wow.
In addition to that, we've got tungsten grades above 2%, and our copper grades, the highest was about 3%. So we really do have very high-grade vein sets within the deposits, and we know that they continue down for at least another 100 meters.
And tell me now, just want to do a little bit backwards with regards to the SQM deal and the announcement last week. Australian company, different mentality. Namibian company, different mentality. How's that culture combining?
So we get along really well with the SQM team. In fact, we're hoping to get them across soon to finalize the work programs so we can initiate after the Competition Commission. But the mentality on both sides has been one of let's look at the potential and then see what we can find and grow it. So for the first phase, we're going to be doing some more channel sampling. It's how we discovered the deposits. We're going to see how big this thing actually is. We've got a couple of other areas within the license which also have nice big spodumene crystals. We're going to sample those, and then we'll put in the first drill holes to see how they continue at depth. Do they get bigger, as we found with the original drill program? Following that is phase 2, where we then do infill drilling and we work towards a resource. And then phase 3 would be into the bankable feasibility study. And
the bankable feasibility study, with a fair wind, we're looking at what sort of period for that to start to take place? So
the more we find, I think the quicker we'll go, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So if we find sufficient size and mass in our first stage, then we'll increase the rate of spend. And the second one, add more resources to the project, move it faster, or as fast as possible without being reckless.
And in your explorations team, I've heard that I think the majority of your team are all from Namibia. So it's really good to have that local workforce from in country.
Yeah. So we have a dedicated team on the ground, all Namibian.
Yeah.
And then we support it from head office as and when they require it. So we help them with the reporting, sampling, reporting on the side. Yeah. But we've got very competent guys on the ground who turns out are really good at finding not only lithium, but also tin and tungsten.
Local knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And just looking forward, now there's going to be, following the deal, the SQM deal, there's going to obviously be a little bit more, cash balance is going to be a little bit more healthier, so to speak. What are you looking to achieve with regards to your exploration objectives between now and, I don't know, end of the year, looking forward to middle part of next year? What are the big objectives?
So for Lithium Ridge, we're going to kick off that program, establish the camp, get the surface sampling programs going, hopefully start the drilling as well. At Uis, we've currently busy doing infill drilling on the northern cluster of pegmatites. So we should start seeing those results coming through and finalizing all of that validation. And then at Brunberg West, soon we're going to have our next set of results. And then we'll plan the next phase to see if we follow the extensions or prioritize the input work first. In addition to that, Brunberg West is 35,000 hectares.
Sure.
So we have a lot of really good targets there that are worth some follow-up, some geophysics, regional exploration to see if there's another one or two of those lying around.
A geologist's dream, I suppose you may well say.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Very interesting talking to you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Experts on the Australian Stock Exchange assess whether Paladin Resources, which owns the Langer Heinrich mine, which is also located in the Erongo region, is a good investment option. Let's see how they weigh in on Paladin as a stock.
The Stock of the Day is brought to you by IG, Australia's #1 CFD provider. With over 17,000 markets and extended trading hours, turn US earnings season volatility into opportunity. Get started at IG.com.
Stock of the day is Paladin, the uranium miner, cutting its production guidance, citing production issues at its Langer Heinrich mine in Namibia, saying as a result of the lower than expected production results for October and noting the ongoing challenges and operational viability experienced to date in ramping up production at the Langer Heinrich mine, Paladin has determined to revise its FY25 production guidance. Production guidance there lowered to between 3 million and 3.6 million pounds, down from 4 to 4.5 million previously. And the company is saying it expects production to be higher in the second half of FY25 as it works through the current challenges encountered at its mine, as it looks to ramp up operations then. So let's take a look particularly at the chart, and it does look ugly today, off around 24-25% off the back of that downgrade. Gary, how do you see it?
I really can't see any support for this one until around about that 560 zone, which is sort of the 2022 and 2023 lows, kind of pretty much where they've sort of built a base for around 2-3 years, and then started to build. It looks pretty negative to me. So it looks. I know it's sort of gap down here. Look, you know, people might say I was in could be an exhaustion gap here. Look, maybe it is, but the trend is pretty negative there. I personally wouldn't be touching it there. I mean, uranium's been a leading sector there, obviously, earlier in the year. Had a terrific run there for probably 18 months. And the thing is, with those leading sectors, once the trend rolls over, there's something called the 50-80 rule. Now, 80% of those leading sectors here will have a decline around 50%, and then 50% of them might actually have something like a 70-80% decline. So they can have big pullbacks once those leading themes really finish their really aggressive trends. So, you know, to me, it's a stay away from here at the moment. You're trying to bottom pick here, which is dangerous.
All right, if you're in it, do you sell though, or do you hang on? It's a hard call.
Tough question. Yeah, I wouldn't have been in it. So.
Well, that's easy to say in retrospect, isn't it, Gary?
Yeah. Well, it's been trending down pretty aggressively. So So if you haven't sold it by now, you've probably left it pretty late here. But I can't see any support until around about 560. The good news is we have seen a lot of V-shaped highs and lows here in this market. So we've seen sectors get hit pretty hard, then run pretty hard, hit pretty hard, and bounce back pretty hard. So I think it might go a bit lower here, but then it's probably likely just to bounce back pretty hard, in a few months' time as well. So if you've sat through this bigger move, you might want to sit through a bit longer.
Okay, Michael.
Look, I actually really like this sector. I think there's quite a bit of upside next year for the uranium sector. There's quite a bit of...
because of Trump?
No.
Or added to that?
I mean, that would actually help a little bit, to be honest. But basically, you've got increasing demand for nuclear power, which we're all reading about, but the supply of uranium is just not keeping up. The largest miner out of Kazakhstan has cut production, and as we could see with Paladin, they're finally getting into production, but they just can't meet their target. So supply is going to be an issue. The problem is it's a very opaque market. It doesn't move with the spot. The spot price doesn't move with actually what's really happening in the uranium market, like with other commodities. So the market at the moment doesn't have a visibility to where these prices can go. So I think they could pick up quite a bit next year, and this whole sector can do really well. But as Paladin's shown today, it's hard to get more supply into the market, and that's just going to boost prices. But they're clearly giving everybody a lesson in what not to do, because they had a quarterly announcement only a few weeks ago, and obviously you get teething issues when you're trying to get into production, but they've come clean today that they've had to cut guidance. So what's interesting is this was a stock that I think was about 14-15% short sold. So if the short sellers have now met, if they've now achieved what they were after, which was basically a big downgrade, you might start to see a lot of short covering. I mean, in the next couple of days, as Gary mentioned, we don't know if this thing could go lower, but if it doesn't go lower in the next few days, then clearly the short sellers would use this opportunity to cover off their shorts, because they've made quite a bit of money in the past month. They'd be up sort of 40%. So is it a buy today? I think it depends on your time horizon.
Technically, no sign of a bottom?
Technically, I mean, it's off the lows from this morning, so maybe it's doing that. But I had a chart, if we don't mind pulling it up again, a monthly chart of Paladin. What's very interesting is it's been forming this big base, as we could see, for over 10 years now, and it popped out of that earlier in the year, but it's come back into into that zone, and I've put a diagonal line there on the far right hand side where it might find support on this monthly chart, which is around where it is now. So and we might be discussing this later in the show, with with any chart, when you have a formation, like a consolidation or a base, the longer it goes on for, the bigger the move when it eventually does get going. So when this thing finally gets going at some point next year, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the short term, you could end up with a fairly substantial move. And as Gary said, it's not unusual for when the trend gets going, you see 50% declines, but often in these sorts of, with these sorts of declines, once the trend gets going again, you could even see a tripling of the share price. But look, for today, I think it's it's an observation.